Most of us will experience the awful feeling of being lost at some point in our lives, whether it's literally or metaphorically. In this video, I share with you some of my own personal experiences with feeling lost and the zoom out technique for conquering that feeling. So the embarrassing reason for this video is the other night I got lost in my own house. Now that sounds insane, but the power went out, there was a blackout, there was a storm, and I woke up in the middle of the night and no lights would work and my torch was in the kitchen, so I thought I better get it. I got up, I got into the hallway, and somewhere in the darkness of my hallway, I live alone, I got lost. I live out in the country, it's very quiet, very dark. There's no street lights around, nothing, and everything is black. And I had a little panic, and it sounds kind of stupid now, but I was lost in my hallway trying to reach for something to get my bearings, and the fear came up, and with that all these weird irrational thoughts like robbers have cut the power and they're gonna bash me and torture me and rob me. There's ghosts, that must be the ghosts that have done it, or this is the solar flare all of the scientists have been talking about. I'll never have power again, the world is coming to an end, you name it. Anyway, boop, I hit the doorway, found my bearings, got to the kitchen, got the torch, and then I had to deal with the adrenaline, couldn't sleep. And the next day, in the light of day, I thought about how stupid and silly and absurd it is to feel lost, and that I was taking such a micro perspective of where I was in real time, and that if I just zoomed out one layer, hey, you're in your house, it's okay, just keep moving forward, you'll find your way. And I got to thinking, how can this apply to the metaphorical sensation of feeling lost, which I've experienced professionally and in a life situation sense. So I want to dive into that now. My most recent experience with the life metaphorical experience of being lost happened at 37. I'm 41 now. So a few years ago, I reached a point in my professional career as a lawyer. I had built a law firm where I no longer felt like I was in the right place. And in fact, it was a very confusing experience because everything I'd worked for and built didn't feel aligned or correct or like it was engaging me or bringing me any kind of satisfaction anymore. So in 2010, I built the law firm after my wife at the time was in a horrific head-on collision, a really terrible car accident on one of the major freeways here on the Sunshine Coast where I live. Now, I was having a coffee with her dad at the time and the police called me. I got to the scene, which was like a movie set. The highway was all blocked off. There were choppers landing, wrecks of cars smoldering, and ambulances and fire engines, and it was very, very intense. And when I got to the ambulance where my wife was being treated by paramedics, she'd been cut out of one of the vehicles by the firemen with those jaws of life. And I was sitting at her head and she was semi-conscious and horrific injuries. And she had a stroke in my hands and I saw one side of her body slump. And it was a very intense moment. It was Valentine's Day 2010. And it was a day that will stay with me forever because of the intensity of that moment. And I was not a religious person. I'm still not overly religious, but you can believe I was praying to a higher power to spare my wife. Please, anyone that will listen, anything, if there is a greater force, I'm willing to do anything to keep this human that I love here on this planet, in this realm with me. So she got airlifted and flown off in a chopper to the hospital. And I had a very long drive to get there where I was just thinking the worst. And it was a really, really horrible, intense experience, and one that is almost dreamlike, where time is warped and everything feels very, very strange. But the good news is she did survive that, only just. It's as close as anyone can get to death. And she survived. She got through that and she could no longer work because of her injuries. And I vowed to the higher power when I was bedside that I would take care of her. And I knew I had to create something to take care of us both and be at home for her. So I had just also lost my job. It was during the GFC, the global financial crisis of 2008, 9, 10. It was just hitting in full impact. I was an employed lawyer. At the time, I lost my job. And so I created my own little law firm from the living room on my laptop while she was in a wheelchair at first and then crutches. And I got to work and I got to building that in my own time, in my board shorts a lot of the time. But then I would chuck my suit on to go and visit clients. And then that way I could also care for her while she was at home. My motivation was so potent because my why was to provide for me and my sick wife, and I could outwork anybody, and I did, and I just worked and I worked, and my way of caring for her was to make sure that we were okay financially and we were going to be successful anyway, and I'd work hard enough for two people. So in doing this, you can probably start to imagine what happens. I take on enormous amounts of stress and I slowly start to burn out. It took me a good 5 years to really get the business cracking, where I had staff, I had team, and I was, earning upwards of $500,000 in turnover just with me and a few others. So it did very well. And unfortunately, in the process, what happened, my way of caring for my wife actually turned me into a workaholic, and the stress got the better of me and I started to self-medicate with alcohol. She went through a depression, which is natural with somebody that has such a horrific multi-trauma. So being a support person in that situation, as well as trying to take care of her financially and working. And by the time I did sort of get some support with staff, the stress and overload was really taking hold. I didn't cope overly well by just self-medicating. At the time, I didn't have too many practices to help me, and I reached complete and utter burnout. We had 2 beautiful children, but that still wasn't enough to maintain the relationship, and we finally conceded that we were no longer in love, and we got divorced. After the divorce, it was interesting because I carried on in my law firm, but I really struggled to connect to the work and to my why. And looking back now, I can see that I had based my drive and my motivation and my why, in inverted commas, on providing for my wife. And after the divorce, that was no longer there. And so I started to feel really disillusioned and disconnected from being a lawyer and also running that particular law firm. So I started instead, intuitively, I think this is what happened. I did use the zoom out technique, and I thought, well, if I'm not a lawyer, I don't know what else I am other than a human being. So I zoomed out and I'm like, well, you're a human and you've got a few problems that we need to address. Your stress management really sucks. We need to do something about that. So I went off and I got some psychological assistance. I went to see a psychologist. She referred me to a meditation teacher, interestingly enough. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. But I also started a physical practice, a movement practice, and I started to take care of the body. And this was the start of my rehabilitation into a new identity, first and foremost as a human being, which then led me to some career changes, which I'll talk about in a moment. When you're feeling lost or you don't know what to do next, a good place to start is an audit of anything that's not serving you that needs to go. For me, that was definitely liquor. Alcohol was ruining my life. I was a complete and utter alcoholic. I would drink every single day until I passed out every night. I didn't fall asleep. I passed out. So I would go through a few cartons of beer a week, plus multiple bottles of wine, usually a bottle of wine every night, and a few single malt whiskeys every single night. So I'd have anywhere from, 10 to 20 standard drinks every night, and then on the weekends, even more. I was a high-functioning alcoholic, which means I could still keep my job, socialize, do what I needed to do, but I just felt like crap every single day. It was my normal resting state. But when you get to that low level, you don't have anything to contrast it to. You don't know what it feels like to feel good anymore. Liquor is excellent for numbing emotions you don't want to feel. It's almost like just postponing things, numbing things. So it's an anesthetic in a way. But the problem is when you do that for years and years and years and years, you have all these unprocessed emotions and issues that are under this carpet. And for me, I got to this point, it was spilling out everywhere and my life felt like it was falling apart. And so when I quit liquor, I made a decision. I had a horrible event. I won't go into all of that for the sake of time for this video. I had a horrible event that really, really scared me. It was a bit of a rock bottom situation. And I decided there and then liquor has to go. There's just nothing good it can do for me in this regrouping, this getting healthy phase. I need to channel all my energy into a new direction, into a new me, into a new life. I've just lost my wife, my 2 kids who I love. I don't get to live with them full time anymore. I was devastated. So liquor's gone. Now what do? The first month without liquor was hell because my thoughts were completely neurotic and it was at full volume. I didn't have my medicine to turn the volume down anymore and it was just driving me insane. So I went to see a psychologist, which was very helpful, but even more helpful than that was her suggestion to check out meditation. So I did a Google search and I came across some material by Russell Brand, the comedian, who is an advocate for transcendental meditation. I'm going to leave a link to the transcendental meditation resources in the description below if you want to check that out. But my personal experience with this was I went and found a teacher and I felt a bit stupid because she told me before I went to bring a white handkerchief, something white, and some fruit from memory. And I went along and we had a ceremony, and I'm not talking about some Buddhist temple. I'm in a suburban housewife's house in her living room, and she's got a little altar set up with some candles and incense and some dead Asian guys and Buddha. And she starts singing in Sanskrit. And I remember feeling I was a skeptic then, no sense of spirituality or religion at all. But I'm desperate because my mind is killing me. So I'm standing there with my white hanky and my fruit offering. And she gives me a secret mantra that only I know. And I have to keep this in my mind and I have to repeat this over and over and over in my mind for 20 minutes in the morning and in the evening every single day. And I was so skeptical that this was going to help me at all. It just seems too simple. It seems completely stupid. It's a word that doesn't really make any sense. It's a Sanskrit kind of word. I don't even think it has a meaning in Sanskrit, to be honest. So it conjures up no conscious association. There's no feeling that it can create within me. It's very neutral. That's the idea. And I just repeat this in my mind over and over and over. I sit still for 20 minutes, just in an upright position. No need for any particular posture or anything like that. I just sit with my eyes closed and I just calm my breath and I rest my awareness on this word that I say over and over and over. And it was very difficult at first. I'd do 5 minutes and that was it. I couldn't stand it. But over probably 2 weeks, it made an incredible difference. In fact, I can't even tell you how effective it was for turning the volume down. And the idea is it put me into this new place where I could watch my thoughts. So I'd be saying the mantra and then I'd be thinking about this crappy thing at work that I had to do tomorrow and something someone said to me and my divorce stuff I've still got to finalize and sort out and when are the kids' birthdays coming up and blah, blah, blah. So as soon as those thoughts pop up, my only job is to notice the thoughts. Oh, hey, there they are. I don't judge them. I don't lay a guilt or shame on top of those thoughts, even if they are negative or dark. It's okay. I just watch them. Oh, there's that thought again. I just notice it. Oh, I'm thinking, let's go back to the mantra. And then I go back to my mantra and I don't force anything. It's very gentle. And then I repeat my cycle and I keep doing this. And with practice over a few weeks, I noticed the thoughts, they didn't go away. In fact, some mornings they're still, even now, they're still active, but I've got this technique of watching them. And then that creates this kind of space between you and your own neurotic mind. And you don't get these secondary layers of guilt, shame, anger. You don't attach to them. So they get less sticky, and they're just thoughts, and they're just flowing through you, and you don't have to believe them, which was just an incredible relief. And through this, I started to just calm down, because when I was drinking, I would redline. I'd get angry from 0 to 100 like that, like just, And all of a sudden I had this peace, and it took a lot to get me angry. And no liquor. I started to clean my diet up, and I started to get into some fitness and movement. I'm going to touch on that in just a minute. But my mind was finally calm, and I felt in control of it. With the mind under control, it was time to address the body, because drinking every day for many, many years had left me a little overweight. I was a bit out of shape. I was like skinny fat. You know, some alcoholics tend to not get super fat, but they're just soft. I had a soft body, and as a kid, I was always athletic. I played rugby, but for a good 15 years, I just sat in the office and didn't do much at all. I drank. With drinking came either not eating, or I just drink liquor and not eat. Or other times, I'd be eating kebabs or deep fried stuff and fatty foods, but not good fats, the deep fried oily stuff that's toxic. And I'd just be feeling revolting all the time, often just nauseous every single day. So it was time to address the body. Without the liquor, I started initially, there was a gym right beside my office. I went down there and I did like a fairly standard kind of bodybuilding lifting routine. And what was freakish was how quickly my body responded to the weights. And anyone that's lifted, or people that are into bodybuilding, will tell you that there's this thing called newbie gains. When you haven't done exercise for a really long time, or you're just coming into it, it's completely new. Your body just responds almost like you're on PEDs or something. You get crazy responses. And so all of a sudden, my body, and without the liquor, it just responded terrifically. I got muscle, I got leaner, I got stronger super fast, and I became semi-addicted to it because it was giving me these endorphins that I hadn't felt in so long. All of these incredible endorphins and dopamine and serotonin, but in a healthy way. And it was rewarding because I could lift more and more each week. That's the other thing. When you're starting, you're just making massive progress. Every week's a PB. And then you're getting this reward system, and it's this feedback loop that just keeps you wanting more and more and more. Then, of course, I learned that there's a price to pay for that. So I was squatting, I was deadlifting, I was benching, and I got heavier and heavier and getting more and more addicted to it. And I'm looking better and better until I tore a labrum in my hip, which is the capsule, the tissue that holds your ball and socket in your hip. It was very, very painful, like a stabbing feeling in my hip, and it became so painful that I couldn't really squat or do anything. And I went to get it checked out, got an MRI. They figured out what it was, and they recommended physio before we contemplated surgery. So I'm really glad I went down the physio route. It was a long route. It took about 8 months before the pain went away. I was doing rubber bands and all sorts of things. But in the meantime, because I was a bit devastated initially because I just made all these gains and I was loving the weights, I needed something else. And that is how I discovered movement culture, in inverted commas. I'll leave a link to the godfather of that himself, Ido Portal, below, an Israeli teacher who teaches a generalist approach to movement, which included handstands, rings, gymnastics, locomotion, which, if you haven't heard of that, it's a animal crawling, capoeira-inspired dance-like series of skills and patterns that you do on the ground just with your own body weight, similar to capoeira, but it's just has these soft, smooth qualities that I didn't have from the robotic kind of lifting stuff that I'd been doing and was familiar with. So I started to crave that, Handstands are extremely addictive because you get to a couple of seconds freestanding, and that's a big moment. That is this feedback loop that's getting reinforced, making you feel great. Then you want 10 seconds. Then you want 30 seconds. Then you want a minute. Then you want to learn press to handstand. Then you want to learn planche. You want to learn shoulder presses, and the list just goes on. It's a completely endless, infinite game, and you don't need much. So it worked out well because I'm a single dad now with my kids at home, and I can sort of be with them but still do handstands while I'm with them playing. And then they want to play, they want to do it too. And the rings, you can hang them anywhere. So it was really suited to my lifestyle, this style of training, because I didn't need to go to a gym anymore. I could just do it all from home. Or if I was at work, I stopped going to the gym altogether, and there was an open lot behind my building beside the lake, and I would go down there and learn acrobatics, rings, locomotion, and I started to sort of extend my lunch hour. I owned the business, so 2 hours a day I would be down there training almost every single day, and I got better and better and better at that. And then as that was forming and getting better for me, and my meditation was going well, the feeling of being disconnected from my business intensified more and more and more, because I didn't have my wife to really provide for on the same level anymore. And I just started to feel confused about what I was even doing. I didn't enjoy the work, didn't enjoy some of the industrial pressures that come with that, all the regulation. I have regular audits by different governing bodies, big bankers, big corporate real estate agents, government departments breathing down your neck, and people are rude and apathetic. And I just thought, what am I doing? I don't connect with this material anymore. I don't enjoy it. And I sat there and thought, but what else could I possibly do to make money and with my life? And the truth is, I didn't really know. So I thought, though, well, I'll sell my business anyway, and I'll get some money for that, and it'll just come, it'll happen. So I sold my business, found a buyer relatively quick. Unfortunately, COVID kind of hit at the same time with the whole pandemic thing that extended things out. And when I got out, people started to reach out about doing some training, and they wanted me to teach them. And initially I was a bit hesitant, a bit resistant to that. And I think part of that might have been a bit of ego, like, oh no, I'm a lawyer, I'm not a PT or whatever. But then as more and more people asked me, and I started to realize, it wasn't until I went to a retreat, like a workshop with other actual coaches who'd been coaching for a while. And because I'd been training alone for so long, I really didn't have any idea of my own ability levels. I just assumed I'd share stuff on Instagram randomly, but I guess I just assumed that all of these coaches around Australia or around the world that were at this one particular retreat were just like miles in front of me, were just so much better and more knowledgeable than me. And so who was I to try and share my knowledge of movement, which by now I'd gathered about 5 years of fairly concentrated efforts, almost daily, every week almost, because it became my medicine. I stayed sober for almost 2 years, and everything went better in that period of time. My business went better. I was able to sell it. I was clearer. I met a wonderful girl at the time, had a beautiful relationship for a while. And my relationship with my kids was fantastic. And I'm at this retreat, and I realized that I'm actually pretty good. Like, I actually know a fair bit of stuff, and it was all self-taught. And thanks to the internet and YouTube and some online training, I found a coach who would give me some phase work and some programs to do. I'd follow that just in my own time, in my backyard with my kids, and get them involved as well. I didn't go to a gym anymore. I just trained from home, or when I was at work, it was in the lot out the back of the building where no one could see me. And so I realized that, well, now I've got a skill that people want. Now I've got something new to sell, and I didn't even realize that I was creating a whole new skill set that is giving me new commercial opportunities. And interestingly, I got invited to teach at that workshop. I went back and taught the next year, which was just mind-blowing, because there were all these coaches on Instagram that I looked up to, and there I am teaching some of them some of the stuff that I learned. So it was just mind blowing how in 5 years, I didn't even realize, but I was training and recreating myself because I had just zoomed out from the lawyer thing and just, even though I didn't know what the new title was, I just kept working on myself, on self-improving my mind, my body, my physicality, and bit by bit, I had something new to share. One thing I noticed as a lawyer was I was always particularly curious about the people that got into the internet quite early and had online businesses because they seemed to have so much freedom and they really could leverage the power of the internet to make money, and they weren't bound to an office or they weren't sort of answering to these giant forces like these regulatory bodies like I was as a lawyer. So I was very, very curious about the digital creator economy and e-commerce. And so I sat down and I thought, well, what's something I could create? What's something that I've wanted, or is there a gap that I see in the market anywhere? And for me, it was in locomotion because I really wanted to learn locomotion. And I found just doing online coaching with a coach, I'd get sort of drip fed a little bit. It was a bit slow, and I just craved it. I wanted more and more and more. And at the time, it was a bit difficult to find too many resources online. So I'd have to travel. I'd have to go to seminars and workshops. And eventually I gathered some knowledge on this area, and I practiced and I practiced. And I thought, well, if that's hard for me to find, there must be other people out there that are struggling to find courses on it too. So I compiled all my knowledge. I built it into video instructionals, and I used an online platform called Kajabi. I'll leave a link to that below with a special link actually, and you can, I've got an affiliate link. So if you want to check that out, you can get like an extended free trial using my link, and they actually will pay me something if you go ahead and sign up, but I don't mind if you do or not. I'm just telling you that that's how I did it. And with this platform, I loaded all my videos into that, and then I created a sales page. Kajabi does all this. It has I was able to build a website myself, just a simple basic one with sales pages and like chains of emails that are all fully automated, and it links up with PayPal and Stripe. So people can buy your course from anywhere in the world, and they just get access to this course, which also has an app that they can open on their phone, and they can learn locomotion taught by me here on the Sunshine Coast, down beside my pool or out in the forest. I shot it in a few different locations, and it was super fun. And what it also did was it got me way better at locomotion. And I also just was feeling excited about this sort of work because it was creative, and I was getting fitter and healthier for it and better at my craft. Plus there was the potential to make money. And there was the big launch day. I didn't know what I was doing. I just told everybody on social media, Instagram and Facebook, hey, I've built a course, here it is. And I didn't know about launches or how to prepare or how to market or anything. And then I was sitting there and ping, the first sale came through. I've got it set up so an email comes to me when there's a sale. And that's another dopamine reward system that I won't go into fully, but ping, I got a sale. And I got so excited, and I looked, and it was my sister. Sorry, I just had a coughing fit laughing at the fact that my sister was my first customer when I sold my locomotion course. So that little sales email came through. I was so excited. It was my sister. And, maybe it was a sympathy purchase. I just sold my law firm. I was a lawyer. Now I'm selling a weird little digital product, teaching people how to do cartwheels on the lawn and things like this. So, but it was a beautiful gesture, and it didn't take long before ping, there was another one, and it was a name I didn't recognize. It was a complete stranger had bought my product. They'd paid for it with their credit card or their PayPal account, and the machine, without me touching it, ping, had sent them access codes, and they were able to access it. And it was like pure alchemy to me because, believe it or not, when you're a lawyer, some people don't always want to pay you, and you try your best to get money up front, but sometimes you can't always do that. So a big part of my job as a lawyer was like chasing people for money. sometimes, and it would drive me nuts. So this business kind of had it all for me because I did all the work over a couple of months to build it all, and now I'm sitting there and ping, the emails start to go off. And I just see you've been paid, and then the person gets the product, and it's a digital product, and the machine sent it to them. It was like magic. And so then it becomes, of course, a challenge of scaling that. Like, how do you get more of that? And then you have to start to think about marketing, because what happened for me was in the first 2 weeks, I sold 10. Just every day it was ping, 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 another one. I'm like, oh, this is easy. I'm going to kill it. But then, of course, they're all your friends and people that want to support you, and people that have been watching for a while. Maybe you've been sharing stuff on social media, and you've got some true fans out there, but there's only 10 of them. And then after that, it's like, oh, how do I reach a wider audience? And then it becomes a game of learning things like marketing and how to reach more people, which is a whole nother skill. We'll go into that another day. From that course, a few people that took it started to reach out wanting more. They wanted more broader movement, online personal coaching, like the coaching that I'd been receiving myself to get where I was with handstands, rings, locomotion, acrobatics, mobility, bodyweight strength, that sort of thing. So I started to offer that as a service, again, online. And it's a great model for me because I can sort of pick and choose my hours to a large extent. It fits in around the kids, and it keeps me out of a corporate office. And I'm building on this idea of being a digital creator. So this is another thing that I'm still currently growing and expanding now. And the goal is, I think, to grow that a little more and also add in some other products like the locomotion course. I've just finished building a rings course that'll release very soon. If you want to stay in touch about that, you can check out the links in the description below to my blog or my newsletter. I also share a lot of tutorials here on this YouTube channel, so make sure you subscribe if you want to check out some of those that are movement related. And I also am very interested in this whole self-improvement space because I feel like I've been through quite a lot myself, classically educated, and now turning away from that and embracing the new age of technology and internet. And I mean, we've just had some AI released just recently, ChatGPT, which is very interesting to me. So how do we embrace these things and, in an entrepreneurial sense, stay free, but also profitable and create some dreams around that? Like for me, I really want to do some more travel. The world kind of got shut down there for a while, and it starved me of what I love to travel. In the past, I'd always kind of go somewhere every year. So I've had a few years of starvation from that. So I want to be able to travel, and hey, I can take my laptop with me. I can work. I could even live abroad. I could take my kids and we could do 3 months in Bali, or I could go to India and take a yoga course, or I could go to South America or Central America and see some of my friends from the movement community and do some training and study with them, maybe learn some Spanish and earn money as I go and have this business and also some relatively passive income. Because like I say, the locomotion course really opened my eyes to a few months of hard work, which wasn't work, it was play, it was fitness, it was fun. And it's sitting there now and it's selling for me. Even now, it's still selling. I add to it and improve it and refine it and still make it better. But it doesn't even feel like work because it's just stuff that I love doing. So to wrap up these tangents and bring them back into where we started with the theme of this video, which is the experience of feeling lost. If you're feeling lost or hopeless or dark, or you don't know what's next or what to do or what job you should be doing, etc., in any capacity, that's okay, because I was there too. I know how that feels. It's very awful. You're in this fog, you're in this swamp, and you don't know how to get out. But I would just suggest trying to zoom out a layer or two and remember that you're a human being, and that a human being has a few essential needs, like the body. We need to care for this body. We need to hydrate it. We need to make sure it gets adequate sleep and rest. We need to move it. And why not move it in interesting ways, in creative and fun ways that gives you some sort of dopamine reward, but in a healthy way, and that makes it stronger and more robust. And from there, you can get clearer on your decisions. And then, of course, we have the mind, which can get neurotic and foggy and dark and negative and awful unless we have tools to mitigate that and manage it. So if meditation appeals to you, then check out Transcendental Meditation is a great one. There's lots of styles. Just check out any style and give it a try. If that doesn't appeal to you or call to you, there is breathing, breathwork techniques, also excellent because you get like a physiological response that comes with some tranquility. You have journaling, get those thoughts out onto a page, very therapeutic. You have time in nature, time with loved ones, all of these things. Maybe it's time with your puppy, walking the dog. We need things to calm the mind down and extract ourselves from the overstimulation of the phones, of the technology, that it's just so easy to stay constantly distracted and busy and not face up to some of the emotions that we need to process to be healthy, balanced, healthy human beings. I hope sharing some of my stories helped inspire you in some little way. I'll leave a link in the description below to all the resources I mentioned. If you got something out of this video, please like it, feel free to share it, and please don't forget to subscribe, and let's just keep improving together, feeling more tranquil, peace together, stronger together, and I'll see you in the next video.